Sinclair Lewis's Hornet's Nest. The Literary Digest. May 29, 1926. Sinclair Lewis's defiance of God caused a mere ripple beside the tidal wave of comment over his renunciation of the Pulitzer Prize. God still remains more or less secure, but the prize is compelled to justify itself. Mr. Lewis also has to abide under an imputation of an underlying motive. He spurns the Pulitzer $1,000 and gets many $1,000s worth of advertising, says the Syracuse Post-Standard. It is an oft-repeated jibe, and may do an injustice to the author of what Mr. Mencken calls in the Baltimore Sun, a gallant and excellent gesture. As almost everybody now knows, Mr. Lewis, through his publishers, told the world that he wouldn't accept the Pulitzer Prize for various reasons. First, he dislikes any prize going to a book best representing the wholesome atmosphere of American life and the highest standards of manners and manhood. Implicitly denying that his book presents anything of the kind, he claims that such a definition limits the scope of the award, and tends to put a compulsion on writers to become safe, polite, obedient, and sterile. He foresees that such standards would mean that the appraisal of novels would be made not according to their literary merit, but in obedience to whatever code of good form may chance to be popular at the moment. The press commenting on his letter specialize on 2 points: Mr. Lewis in particular, and novelists in general seduced by the lure of a prize. Editorial writers have not missed the chance to poke a little fun at the protester. More than one suggest that some chagrin appears that Main Street and Babbitt did not earlier attract the attention of the committee. The Minneapolis Tribune presents this view. It would seem that Mr. Lewis has gone in for a rather far-fetched arraignment of the Pulitzer Prizes. The feeling will be general that, to put it mildly, his manners were not of the best. The suspicion will also be enunciated that he has nursed a pique against the Pulitzer Prize judges for having ignored his Main Street and Babbitt. In many quarters, it will be felt that he is now turning his back on the Pulitzer Prize judges because twice before they turned their back on him. At any rate, the appearances being what they are, he might more gracefully have taken the prize and concealed his thoughts. The Pulitzer Prizes perhaps do American letters no particular good, but for all that, they certainly represent no menace either. Essentially a somewhat futile institution, the Pulitzer Prize Award is dignified too much when Mr. Lewis proceeds to wax so spectacular and melodramatic about it. From the volume of newspaper comments on Mr. Lewis's gesture, the suggestion arises that here is a chance to award another prize. Who has reacted most humorously to Mr. Lewis's seriousness? If it should fall to us to make the award, we should light upon the Philadelphia Record. Merely to look a gift horse in the mouth may satisfy the ordinary mind suspicious of the creature's value. Measures far more robust are adopted by one of our literary modernists. He hits the devoted animal a smash in the jaw, and executes around the shivering equine form a war dance of sardonic repudiation. Well, this is Boy Week, so why shouldn't the spirit of flaming youth express itself in thumbing its nose at literary distinction, as well as in playing marbles and the harmonica? And even those who smile at his antics must admit that Mr. Sinclair Lewis, for the assault is perpetrated by none other than the creator of George F. Babbitt, packs, as the saying is, a mean wallop. By the judgment of the committee, the Pulitzer Prize for the best novel of the year was awarded a few days ago to Mr. Lewis's Aerosmith. Doubtless, the judges made the selection in all sincerity, and probably with a subtle sense that they exhibited proper courage and enlightenment in thus honoring an independent and ruthless satirist. But swift and devastating was the rejoinder of the infuriated author. It was not enough that he should reject the proffered accolade. He must spurn it with contumelious scorn and denounce it as an agency of prostitution. All prizes, he wrote, are dangerous, for the aspirants labor not for excellence, but for alien rewards, and timorously court the prejudices of those distributing the largesse. Not for his proud hands are such bestowals. The only rewards he finds tolerable are popularity and royalties, untainted by endorsement from any self-appointed critics. Without accepting Mr. Lewis's conception of good manners or conceding that the Pulitzer verdict is inherently vicious, it may be said that his rejection exhibits vigor of mind and spirit. He has a perfect right to express his personal aversion to accepting the judgment. Not quite so happy is his assumption that any writer who does accept such a tribute thereby debases his profession and expresses a paltry subservience to arbitrary authority for the sake of gain. Men and women not Mr. Lewis's inferiors in literary talents or sublimity of soul have endured the supposititious affront without any sacrifice of honor, dignity, or prestige. What he professes to fear is that the authority of the committee may become a sanctified tradition, and the body a tribunal to doubt which would be deemed blasphemy. Any tradition being to minds like his something infamous, and resort to blasphemy a cherished right, he naturally makes grievous outcry against such possibilities. But we think his passionate fears for literary freedom are a little neurasthenic. The recipients of the Pulitzer Awards have been, for the most part, persons of unquestioned and even ostentatious candor of utterance. The very fact that his latest work was chosen might reasonably have quelled the flutterings of suspicion in his breast. The decision showed anything but a sinister pandering to moral sentiment and Victorian conventions. But his outstanding protest is that the Pulitzer Award is peculiarly objectionable because of its terms. With undisguised scorn, he quotes the requirement that the prize novel shall be one presenting the wholesome atmosphere of American life and the highest standards of American manners and manhood. To be branded as a purveyor of wholesome atmosphere and high standards of manners and manhood, could there be a more exasperating affront to the Sinclair Lewises of today? One cannot but sympathize with his agonizing resentment against being associated with themes so unworthy of the exercise of literary genius. Let those who will be corrupted by prizes which he conceives to be rewards for being safe, polite, obedient, and sterile. But let no one presume to imply that he is, or ever will be, anything but dangerous, impudent, rebellious, and fecund in devices for shocking the Philistines. Woof woof, isn't he the desperate fellow? Incidentally, isn't it pleasant to know that by rejecting the $1,000 prize, Mr. Lewis will garner about $42,685 worth of publicity? And that such a thrifty idea never could have entered his idealistic mind? Speaking a little further of the hazards to American literature from writers writing for prizes and not for their own soul's sake, it is absurd, says the Providence News, to think that any able author is deliberately writing in order to win the Pulitzer Prize. The game would not be worth the candle. The great danger to an author's sincerity of opinion and devotion to his art, says the Columbus Evening Dispatch, does not lie in prizes of this nature, which are few in number and comparatively small. The peril lies rather in the far greater financial reward to be won by making a successful appeal to passing phases of a sensation-loving literary market. and the writers most likely to be tempted to yield to that peril are hardly those who would try, regardless of sincerity, to win $1,000 by the best portrayal of the wholesome atmosphere of American life and the highest standard of American manners and manhood. Agnes Repplier, Zona Gale, Carl Van Doren, and some others are quoted in approval of Mr. Lewis's course. The Winston-Salem Journal writes, "Does Lewis not sound a note of warning when he declares that the administrators of the prize may become a Supreme Court, a college of cardinals, so rooted and so sacred that to challenge them will be to commit blasphemy? He will do his part in preventing such an arbitrary authority being established by ignoring the award that comes to him.